So I thought I would offer this session on using Zoom because one of the things that myself and my colleague Martin, who's also here, have come across quite a bit over the last 9 months or so, are people saying they've had to put their community emergency planning work on hold because their community emergency planning team can't meet because of the pandemic. And we are lucky, I guess, that we actually have this technology, Zoom, that has enabled people to meet throughout the pandemic. And what I really want to say is, following on from Simon's keynote this morning, that this winter presents some really unique challenges. Community emergency planning is especially important right now. And there is no reason for us to not meet because we have Zoom and we can use this as a way to meet. Now, I'm not an IT expert or anything like that, but like everybody, when the pandemic first started, I run sessions on Zoom, so I had to start using Zoom and figuring out what to do. We've run some very successful focus groups for town and parish councils throughout the pandemic that some of you might have come along to, and we've held those on Zoom, and I found them to actually work really quite well. So as I say, I'm not an IT expert or anything. This is going to be a practical sort of talk through what you can do and a Q&A if you have any questions that you want answered, just to hopefully give you a bit of confidence to be able to use Zoom for your community emergency planning meetings and any other meetings, of course. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I've done some really, really basic screenshots of some of the key functions. So I'm going to share my screen just to go through those with you. But before I do that, I just want to add a bit of a note to all of this, which is that all of the screenshots and all of the things I'm talking about are as if you are using Microsoft and they're taken on a laptop. If you're using your phone or if you're on an Apple device, all of the functions are still there, but they're in a slightly different location. And I don't use my phone for Zoom and I don't have an Apple device. I don't know exactly where you would find them, but they are there to be found. So I'm going to go through the functions as if you're on a standard laptop. So let me just share my screen with you. Okay, so you should all be able to see my screen now, which is showing the Zoom join screen. So when you first log into Zoom, this is the first screen you see. And if you're joining somebody else's meeting, you simply click join and add the details that you've been given. But I want to just talk a bit about scheduling a meeting if you are the one setting up a meeting for your community emergency planning group. So you click the schedule button, and then once you've clicked that, it will take you to this form. And it's really quite simple and straightforward. You just put in our community emergency planning meeting, your time, how long the meeting will last. If you're on a free Zoom account, you've got 40 minutes, but then you can just log back in. If you're on a paid account, you have as long as you need. And more people have got paid accounts. They're not that expensive. So you might well find that somebody in your community emergency planning group, your parish council, will have a paid account that you can use. It asks you to, if you want to password for security, and we would recommend that you always do that. Setting the waiting room is useful if you've got lots of people joining, especially if you have the meeting open to the public. But if it's just a few of you, you don't really need to tick the waiting room button. And then there's some questions about having the hosts and the participant videos on, and that is just as you join. Of course, once you're in the meeting, you can turn your video on and off. And then you can have it added to your Outlook calendar. That works if you've got Outlook synced onto your device. And then you just hit save and your meeting is there set up. And then when you go back to your home screen, you'll have it there. Like you can see with mine, it says Louise McAllister's meeting. And then there's the meeting details there. And if you want to share your meeting details, if you haven't done that through your Outlook calendar, then you can simply click those 3 dots that appear next to the name of the meeting and next to start, and it takes you to that. You just get a little drop down where it says copy invitation. And then you can just copy the invitation and stick it into an email and send it to as many people as you like. And they will then have the details to join the meeting. So it's pretty simple to set up the meeting. And then when you start the meeting, there's a number of different functions that I'll just sort of talk through now. So I think I've missed a screen. Yes, I do. Sorry, I seem to have missed a slide. Sorry about that. So along the bottom, which I haven't done here, I seem to have missed that slide. You should have the first icon that you have along the bottom of your screen should be a little speaker, and that can just be mute or audio. So you can literally just choose whether or not people hear you, and it's as simple as that. The next one going along is a camera icon. And again, it's just to choose whether people see you or not. Again, as simple as that. The next one is the security sort of shield thing. And here I have got it on the slide. It pops up to this black box that I've got here where it says lock meeting, enable waiting room, and some things that you can enable participants to do. And these are not things that you necessarily would really, if you're just having a meeting with people, need to look at, but having the chat enabled is obviously really useful. And that's pretty much the main function that I would say, because having the chat box open can be quite helpful. The next icon along is the participants, where you just have two little people. And if you click on participants, this one's just come up with me because when I was taking these screenshots, it was just a practice meeting, but it will be a list of all of the people who are in your meeting. And in a meeting like this one that we're doing right now with a waiting room, as the host, I can also see if people are in the waiting room. Also, when you click on the participants list, you get a handy little icon where it says mute. If somebody can't find their mute button, or sometimes somebody will join and then they'll be talking still, then you as the host can mute them. And then next to mute, it says more. And you can rename people or edit your profile picture, but you can also make somebody a host using that. It hasn't come up on this example because it was only me in the meeting when I was taking these screenshots. But if you wanted to make somebody a co-host, it would come up there as an option. Don't seem to have the right slide for that, but the next one along is the chat icon. And if you click on the chat icon, which you'll be able to do in your Zoom screens now, and it will come up with a chat box. On a Microsoft device, it comes up on the right-hand side, and it's really, really simple. It's a bit like the old Messenger system on Microsoft, where you can literally just type in a message to everybody, or you can select somebody and private message them. There's also a little box where you can put attachments in, so you just click on attachments and add attachment if you want to do that. Next is screen sharing. This is what happens if you click the screen sharing button. You get this option to share all of the different elements from your screen. So you can share your actual screen, or you can share a whiteboard. And if you share a whiteboard, it's somewhere where people can write and draw and doodle if you're having quite a creative meeting and that's something you want to do. But what you're more likely to do is have a presentation. It will come up here as one of your options, and you simply click on it and it will share the screen. And then once you're sharing your screen, you have this green you are screen sharing wording pop up along the top, and you just have that there while you're sharing, and then you can just stop once you've finished. And that's pretty much all there is to sharing your screen. You do have to be a host or a co-host or have it enabled for people to share their screens. But if you're having a community emergency planning meeting where you want to show each other documentation or something, then definitely have a screen share enabled, and that should just be an automatic function, but just double check and make people co-hosts if you need to. You can invite people to join the meeting during the meeting, and if you click on invite to join the meeting, it will come up with this. So you can just click on email and that will generate an email to them. But if you don't have your email set up on your device, then you can also just go to copy invitation and it will just copy it to your clipboard. So you can paste it into anything. So you could paste it into Facebook Messenger, you could paste it into an email different to the one that you've got set up on your device. And then they'll just have the code and they'll be able to join the meeting as well. So I'm going to just stop sharing the screen now. The next thing along from sharing the screen is recording. So we're recording this meeting. And if you want to record a meeting, that can be quite useful to go back and see what you talked about. If you're the host, the next icon along is breakout rooms. I don't think you'd need to do breakout rooms if you are just holding a community emergency planning meeting. It's something, if you want to ask me about that, you can ask me about that when I finished speaking. And then the last one is reactions. And if you click on reactions, it literally just comes up with some options. You can do like a thumbs up or a smiley face or something like that. If you just want to quickly check for people's opinions or consensus, if people agree with you, you can just say, give me a thumbs up or something like that. And they can do that. And it's quite a simple, exactly like some of you have just done. Thank you. And it's good to know people are listening to me. Yeah, so that's literally the main functions that you need. And they're really, I've gone through them really quickly, and that's because they're really simple and they are literally just what you see. And I think often it's really daunting. And the first few times I did focus groups on Zoom, I was actually quite terrified that something would go horribly wrong, but it's really quite simple and it's all just there for you to use. If you're hosting a meeting, it's usually a good idea to just set out a little bit of sort of guidance at the beginning of the meeting. And that what I normally say is just to advise people to all have mute on as they join, because otherwise you get all sorts of strange conversations going on at the same time and you can't really hear what people are saying. And then also to just let people know to please just talk one at a time. And if you've got less than, I think, 20 people in a meeting, you should, on a laptop or a desktop, be able to see all of their screens. So if you can see their video, people can literally just raise their hand like that to ask a question or if they want to talk. If you've got a bigger number of people, which you probably won't have in a community emergency planning group, if you did, if you have public coming along, if anybody wants to raise their hand, if they go into the participants tab, if you're not a host, you can't do this, but if you are a participant, at the bottom of the participants screen, there is a raise hand button. So people can just raise their hand. And then if you're the host, you can just see like a little raised hand. Excellent. I can see Ali has just raised her hand. Yeah, brilliant. So again, it's just a really simple thing to just be able to tell people that you can do that. And it just helps make the meeting a little bit more orderly when you're not all just sitting in a room, and the conversation just goes a little bit more differently when you're looking at each other through a screen. So if you're hosting a meeting, there's a few things that you might want to do. You might want to invite a participant whilst you're in the meeting. And you can do that just by clicking on the participants box, and then you get invite at the bottom, and you can click on that invite tab, and that will give you the option to get their details. Either you can type in their details and it will send an email, or you can just copy the details for the meeting and send that to them however you want to. I think I've already covered muting people, but I think that's probably, as the host, the main thing that I end up doing. However, often you tell people, I can see actually everybody here has muted themselves, but often people don't mute themselves. And if you're the host, you can literally just hover your cursor over their screen, over their picture, and it will just give you the option to mute them. If somebody's got the radio on or something, it's just really useful to do that. The other thing to do is just look out for raised hands, both virtual raised hands and actual raised hands. yes, I've already told you about how to make people co-hosts, but I'll just go over that again, because if you do need to share information, sharing documents, it's a useful tip. So you go to participants, you click on participants, the list of participants comes up. If you're the host, in those little blue buttons, one of those options will be make co-host. And then if you make somebody the co-host, they also have all of the controls and they can also share their screen. Worth also mentioning, although the vast majority of people are on the internet, not everybody is. And again, it's really important that that's not a barrier. And you can actually call into a Zoom meeting by phone. So when you set up your Zoom meeting and you get the invitation details, when you click that copy invitation, it's not just simply the link and the meeting password and the meeting username. You also have all these, it's quite a long invitation and it includes details about how to dial in. So if anybody does prefer that or is really nervous about using Zoom online, whatever, they can dial in using their phone, and then they'll just be able to hear everybody and they'll be able to contribute to the discussion as much as anybody else, but they won't be able to see anything, but they will be able to join. So that's like a very quick whistle-stop tour of the very basic things that you would need to do. I am happy for this session to be, the rest of this session to either be, if you want to ask me some questions, if you have anything specific, or if anybody would like to have a go at being made the co-host and seeing the different options, we can do that as well. So it's kind of over to you really. What do you need to know from me to help you be able to hold meetings with your community emergency planning group? Richard.
Yeah, could I just ask a question about inviting people sort of offline before the actual meeting? Yeah. Is it in that very first box when you're talking about the scheduling? Do you then list people's emails or what?
No, so you can click, if you have Outlook linked to your computer, you can click Outlook at the very bottom of that form that you get. It says Outlook, and then it will generate an email, and then you can literally just put the people and names into the email. But I've got a strange setup on this laptop, so I don't do that. What I do is I'll just set up the meeting, and then I'll just go to that copy invitation box, and then I'll just have it on my clipboard, and then I log in separately to my emails, copy it into an email, and then just add everybody's emails. But if it is set up and linked, then you can do it so it's like a calendar appointment. So it goes straight into their calendar and saves the time and everything with that as well. Yeah.
Okay, and does the system keep a check on the people who've accepted?
No. That would be through your email system.
Right.
It'd be like an ordinary email calendar invite that you send.
Okay, but so it doesn't then automatically say when you're actually coming up to the meeting date that, you know, these 5 people have agreed and these 3 people we haven't heard back from, or something like that?
Zoom won't, but it would just be the same as your normal Outlook calendar. So if you just send people an Outlook invite, so if you click Outlook, it will set in that scheduling box, it will send it as a calendar invite. So once you just log into your Outlook, you'll be able to see as normal an Outlook.
Okay, I mean, it probably is different for me because, again, I'm on Apple, but okay, I'm getting the general gist of it. So that's great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Alice has just very usefully put something into the chat about being able to set up registration, which I didn't know. Alice, you've also got your hand raised, so I don't know whether you wanted to come in and comment more.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, when you're scheduling a meeting, I've got a paid account, so I don't know if it's different for the free accounts. But as you're sort of going down the options, when you I think it's there close to the passcodes and waiting room area, it does say that you can require registration. and that means that it's a slightly different invitation that goes out to your members, and they then have to click a registration and just basically fill in their name and tick, yes, I intend to be attending this meeting. They will then automatically get sent the meeting details, and you as the host will then get a notification that Richard will be attending your meeting on such and such a date, which helps you keep track as who has responded and who hasn't, so you can chase up those who maybe don't check their emails as frequently as you might like.
Thank you, that's really useful. I took those screenshots using my my own free account actually, which I probably shouldn't have done because it seems like I missed out a few of the features actually. Thank you for letting us know about that.
That's all right.
Jackie, you've got your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. How do you retrieve the recording and how do you share it with other people, please?
That's a good question because for me, we have a support services team who do that. However, I think when I set the recording, so when I pressed record on this, it asked me if I wanted to save it to the computer or whether I wanted to save it to the cloud. And I think I did test this previously on my personal account. And when you record it, it comes up immediately afterwards. It will tell you that there's been a recording. That's a good question, actually, as to how you retrieve it. But you do decide whether it's your computer or the cloud. If anybody else knows the answer to that, if anybody else has done that, please do. Oh, okay. So Lorraine said it's come up as on your folders as Zoom, which is really useful to know. Thank you. Kevin, we'll go to Kevin and then Ali.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can.
The main problem I've had with scheduling meetings is that I've scheduled it and sent everyone the invite, but when they've actually gone to attend the meeting, they get a message saying host is already in another meeting. I've known it to happen, other people to have the same problems, and I can't work out what the sequence of events are that makes that happen. I don't know whether you've ever come across that.
I haven't, but I have had a friend who've told me that that's happened to them. I don't know whether, so the important thing is that when you start your meeting, that you start the right meeting.
Yes, yeah.
So obviously we have a Devon Communities Together account where we have lots of meetings listed that are scheduled. So it's important you start the right one, and it's important that you don't start a new meeting when you log into your screen.
And I think you've probably got to be logged in as well, haven't you?
You've got to log in. You've got to be the account that set it up, and you've got to log in as the host to that meeting. So you just need to be on the account that set the meeting up, and the host has to have started the meeting.
Yes.
Will then log into different accounts.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've solved this by getting someone better to set up all my meetings. Thank you.
Actually, I would go back and just practice doing it again, just to try and figure out what went wrong, just so that you don't have that looming over your head, that you have that as an issue.
Yeah. So I mean, it delayed us by about 10 minutes. To we eventually sorted it out, which on a free 40-minute call was a bit annoying.
Yeah. Ali, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to Rosie.
Yeah, it's probably just an idiosyncrasy of my laptop, but I'm looking at 16 names and only 5 videos. Is everybody on video, or is it? Have I done something?
So right now on this screen, we've got 5 people who you can see an image of. 6 now. Somebody's just. Can you see everybody else as just their name?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just because they've hidden themselves. So that's the video icon down in the bottom left-hand corner where it says stop video. So stop video, I restart video. You can decide whether or not people see you. And sometimes people will do that if they haven't got a great internet connection. If it's a little bit jumpy, it can actually help if you just stop your video showing. So that's the reason why people will do that.
Okay. The other thing was that my last Zoom meeting I was on, all I could see was the speaker and myself.
And that's the view.
I couldn't change the view. Is it again?
Yeah, so on Microsoft, on the top right-hand corner, it's a little bit hidden away from the other icons. There's a little tab that's just a little square, and it's a view in the top right-hand corner, and then you can choose the different types of view, like speaker view, seeing everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is a bit hidden away, that icon.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Rosie.
Yeah, I think I've answered my own question by clicking on some buttons. So I was just going to ask if you can save the chat that's been going on in a call, because sometimes I've been on things and they've sent like useful links in that, and I've not saved it. But I think that looks like there's a way to, there's 3 little dots again, and you can save chat that way, which looks quite useful. So yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. But also, if you are the host as well, you if you record the meeting, it also records the chat. But that's a good point. I hadn't previously saved the chat as just as a participant of the meeting. So if you open the chat screen, the 3 dots in the corner.
Yeah.
File, yeah, I can see that now. So next to file in the chat screen, save chat, yeah.
And it saves it to like a Zoom folder I saved it onto my H drive in a Zoom folder.
Excellent, that's really useful. Yeah. Any further questions? Does everybody here now feel like they would be confident to host community emergency planning meetings by Zoom? And if not, what is the thing that's stopping you? Ali, good to see your thumbs up. For Ali Cruz, who was shaking her head, and Terence, you were shaking your head. What are the things that would be stopping you from hosting a community emergency planning meeting on Zoom?
No, I think it's just a case of trial and error. Just working it out, but it's helped me. Some information has helped me.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where once you start using it, I think you've probably seen through this meeting, I don't know the answer to every single question, but I can use it, and I can use it successfully. You don't need to be an expert to find your way around it, to just do a basic using Zoom, seeing everybody you need to see, having a meeting. It works. So yeah, exactly that. Just go ahead and set up the meeting. You'll find that you'll be able to do it, and it's actually bad after all. Terence, did you also look doubtful? What are you worried about?
Can you hear me now? Yeah? Just too much, too fast, totally lost.
Okay. So you've obviously been able to use Zoom as a participant to join this session.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I join Zoom meetings.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem because it's just done and you click and you're there. But what you've just gone through is, I think for beginners, is just too much. We've too much information all at once. We've not actually been able to absorb it and try it along the line bit by bit.
Okay. Well, what I would say then is actually, whilst it might have seemed like a lot, if you can join a meeting like you have to get here, there's not that much more that you need to be able to do. You need to schedule a meeting. That's as simple as the first screen that you land on. You just hit schedule, and it is just a form. You just work your way through a form and it gives you that link. And that's the same link that you've used to join. There's functions that I've mentioned that you get as a host. They're a little bit more than you do if you're just there as a participant. But as I was just saying to Ali, you can very much go with trial and error. You don't need to be able to use sharing screens and changing things for participants and things like that. They are not essential to being able to just meet. I don't want anybody to think that everything I've just said is somehow something you have to know. You don't have to know any of that. All you need to know is how to start the meeting and see everybody together on a screen. That is the very simple basics of it. There's a few things that you can use that are helpful, especially I would say being able to mute people and unmute people. Things like being able to share chat and stuff like that is also really useful, but none of that is essential. Just being able to log on with a group of people and meet is not much more than just filling out a form and getting that detail. So I guess there's a message in it as well, which is don't overthink it. It's incredibly doable. I can see Kevin had his hand raised and then Bill.
Yeah, a couple of things. One of them you've just mentioned actually is that a key task of a meeting organizer is also to unmute people, because there does seem to be an awful lag on people being able to unmute. It's the favourite phrase, isn't it? Sorry, I couldn't unmute. And it's often quicker for the meeting chair to unmute people when they put their hands up. And the other thing, when we started using Zoom for our parish council meetings, we put out a sort of a protocol for online meetings. It wasn't just Zoom, but it was just how we would manage ourselves within the meetings. Probably a lot of other parish councils did as well, and I can't claim that ours is very original. But and it's along all the things that you just said, you know, about putting your hand up and whatever. And it might just be useful for other people to consider.
Yeah, thank you. That is two very useful points. And actually, that's just one other thing I wanted to say on muting and unmuting. If you're wanting to talk, one way you can unmute yourself very quickly is just by holding down the space bar and you'll unmute. So if you're just making a comment, you just hold down the space bar, you can comment very quickly like that. But yes, as you say, Kevin, sometimes people can't find their way to unmute themselves.
Yes, I'd forgotten that trick. Someone told me that actually.
It's
that you just press the space bar. Yeah.
Very useful.
Lorraine, I don't know what the equivalent is on an iPad.
No, I don't either. Sorry. Lack of Apple knowledge.
It's the same, I think. If you can hear me now, it's the same.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Lorraine's just made a comment in the chat just saying to those of you who are a little bit apprehensive to go onto a free Zoom account and just play with it. And I think she's absolutely right. It's just, you will see that it's very straightforward. You see, come up with those sort of 4 options to join a meeting, schedule a meeting. Can't remember what the others are, but those are the 2 main ones that you need to use. And it's very, very simple. You just set up the form, you can just go through with it. And it's a really good way to just be like, oh yeah, this is simple. It's not daunting, it's doable.
Yeah, that is a good idea. My wife is chair of the WI here, and she chairs Zoom meetings. And when she wants to do something a little bit different, like share some documents and whatever, we always have a practice run the day before between ourselves.
It's a really good idea because it's simple, but it's new. So you just have that little practice first. Bill had his hand raised and then Ali.
Hi, yes, I've been to several, indeed hundreds, I would think, of Zoom meetings. I've never actually run one myself at all, so I found this quite fascinating. Now, the situation I'm thinking about is that I did start my machine the other day, and it did seem like I was still in the meeting. And I really can't tell, you know, at the moment I'm using my iPad, which is weird because there's none of many of the things that you say. I know that gentleman spoke earlier, but I think he must have got his keyboard attached to something or other, because I've got nothing other than
correct.
Yeah, so I'm looking at I got a laptop as well, and I was just looking at the laptop to try to see how to schedule, and I'm just a bit concerned that I left the camera on, and I don't know whether that is actually live or not at the end. And I just wondered whether anybody's come across any embarrassing moments, let's say, and any great warnings that should be made aware to people as to what, if you close your machine down, then obviously fine. But if you leave it and you're doing something else after the meeting and you've just sort of drifted away from the meeting or whatever, you might well be live to someone. And I just wondered whether there's any caveats you might like to give us.
So nothing like that's ever happened in a meeting that I've been hosting. I know when it was the first pandemic, all of a sudden on social media, lots of people were sharing like embarrassing moments in Zoom meetings and people walking in after a shower behind them and that sort of thing. And I've got 2 teenagers who wander through for their food from the kitchen. So you do have to be a little bit aware of, I guess, your home environment. With regards to your camera, as I say, you can turn your camera off by stopping the video down in the bottom, or you can click end to the meeting, leave meeting, and then you're just out of the meeting and nothing's recording anymore. I don't think you have to worry about anything sinister, like Zoom sort of trying to record you afterwards or anything like that. But yeah, if you turn your camera off, so stop video, once you leave the meeting, that nobody can see you then. But no, I don't have any personal embarrassing stories, which is good. Things that way.
I must admit, I'm beginning to be a great believer in the old, you know, what do they call it? The background business, you know, because, you know, what's happening these days on meetings, and it takes ages sometimes, is that, you know, you end up talking about somebody's background. And, you know, it's you know, in my view, you know, the meetings go on a lot longer at times because, you know, there's too many distractions around. But it's all brilliant, I think, the Zoom. I'm hoping that perhaps we, you know, stick at it, really. I prefer this to ordinary meetings in some cases, to tell you the truth. And, you know, it's brilliant. But I'll have the confidence now to try it for myself. Thanks very much indeed.
That's okay. And that it's a good point that you say about continuing using it. I would definitely like to continue using Zoom in a lot of cases, but not all. I'm also looking forward to being able to see people face to face in other contexts. But where people are coming from all different areas, that absolutely works brilliantly and really reduces the need for people to use fuel to travel and waste time traveling. So it has really a great purpose for the future after the pandemic as well. Ali, I noticed you had your hand up a little while ago, and then Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there is any difference in the functionalities between the free Zoom meetings and the paid for ones.
So the main difference that I am aware of is simply the 40-minute limit. So in the free account, you have after 40 minutes, you have to log out, send everybody a new join, and then they have to rejoin, which is a little bit of a nuisance. Although I did see something come up the other day that said that free Zoom accounts are enabling you to keep going beyond the 40 minutes through the pandemic. Other than that, I'm not really aware of anything significant or anything that maybe impacts on anything that I do, but it is really useful to be able to meet for more than 40 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. And also the background that, for example, Bill's got, is that part of Zoom or is that something completely separate?
That is part of Zoom. You can set that up, and now is it the next to the video? Yeah, so where there's the little video icon in the bottom left hand corner, so you can either stop or play the video, there's actually a little arrow on that as well, and it says choose virtual background. If you click on that, you can choose to have some sort of background, and there's usually a selection.
Thank you.
That's okay. Elizabeth.
Hello, it's Liz from the Environment Agency. I'm sitting here in my coat, sorry, because it's so cold. I just, following up from what you said really and what Bill said, I've just been on a call with people who do the equivalent job to me all across the country, so working with flood groups and flood wardens. And it was just an interesting comment from my equivalents over in Kent, who've just run 4 lots of flood warden training via Zoom. And they said they've had attendance like they've never experienced. They've signed up more flood wardens in 2 months than they have in 2 years. And I think it's just really interesting that you get to access a completely different sector of society that perhaps we haven't been able to get to previously. So although there are real downsides of not being able to see people face to face, it's actually got some really positive benefits as well.
Thank you, completely agree. It's really great to see people, including in forum events like this, where although I'm sure we're all missing having a lunch and being able to chat to each other in the breaks, if we were having it in a set location, I'm sure not everybody would want to be able to travel, would want to be traveling across the county to that location. So it really does have some great uses. Do we have any more questions? All good? Okay, I hope everybody's found this session useful. And as the whole purpose of the session was to try and sort of help you to continue with your community emergency planning meetings, just to say, obviously, Devon Communities Together are here to offer support to you in your community emergency planning meetings and in the progression of your community emergency plan. So if you email our main email account, info@devoncommunities.org.uk, it will be passed on to myself or Martin, and we would be absolutely delighted to give you some support, including attending meetings to help you progress your plan. And we hope to see you at those meetings. Thank you very much. And just a reminder that we have sessions for the rest of today and through tomorrow as well, that hopefully some of you will be able to join. Thank you all.
Bye then.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.